All right, how are we? Remember entertainment. Today's note, or this video's note. If I'm not where I want to be, then I'm not yet the person that can bring it to life. Which means the one I am now is not really ready to be that guy. So I've made videos about negotiating with the future, about building yourself to be the person that actually makes your reality or your vision a reality, and all these kinds of things. But there's always, it feels like anytime you expose a part of yourself to the present moment. Here, let me try it again. It feels like anytime you're exposing yourself to your vision, and that's I think the part where people are kind of like intentional. Like it really doesn't matter as long as like you're putting yourself in a position that operates and works towards what you're trying to achieve. Something shows up naturally. Our strength is to be able to like see it, but I really believe our minds are brilliant, and the brilliance that we have is literally in the whole I think the mind's brilliance or the ego's brilliance, let's think that way. The ego's brilliance is kind of like finding a way to, I don't want to say hide because I don't think they do it intentionally, but to keep you focused at certain things that don't really, that are not, that are not, that could actually have stopped contributing to your evolution and moving forward. And I think it's the self-protective mechanism. So let me try again. What happens is when you expose yourself to the vision, and you don't have to expose yourself to the whole vision, but sometimes, like I have to do this. Once this is done, then I'll be able to do something else, or at the very least it's out of the way, or at the very least it's one step closer. Any way you look at it, once you expose yourself to that kind of stuff, naturally frustration starts setting in certain like angles, sometimes like full blown frustration, like because you kind of like realize how incompetent you are, which is fucking beautiful, because I think like this kind of like this incompetence starts in four stages, and maybe it's a good time to actually talk about them. So the Wolf of Wall Street has had a sales conference that I actually watched once, and I'm really that kind of guy. I used to like, instead of watching like bullshit YouTube, sorry, bullshit Hollywood movies when I had free time, I'd literally go and like find videos of lectures and like interviews online. For me, that was fun. It was super fun. It was always engaging, and I always like found it easy for me to kind of like think of this kind of stuff instead of kind of like repeating the same things that people are okay repeating. But so documentaries as well, fucking love it, and fuck ton of anime. A fuck ton of anime. I really am one of those like, kind of geeks. I still do today. I literally get frustrated the day that one of the episodes that I'm of the animes that I'm following are not actually coming up. So on average, I think I have like 10 series or 15 series any given week. But so like he was talking about something that was beautiful, like the first stages of your awareness towards yourself start with you're basically unconsciously incompetent because you have no clue what you have no clue about. And then basically you kind of like approach something. And then when you approach something, what happens is you kind of like integrate or engage with it to a point where you consciously understand how incompetent you are. So now you're aware of how far away you are from that thing that you're trying to do. And that's stage number two, basically, because you're leveling up to get to stage number four. And stage number four is when you're master. You're okay. You know what the fuck you're doing, and it's easy for you to like kind of step forward, take different things, whatever, like figure things out. But ultimately, uh, once you become consciously incompetent, you realize how when you're conscious about your incompetence, you realize where you're lacking. You realize and you know enough about what you're approaching in order for you to kind of like do things about it. And I think that's a transitional state because The goal is for you to end up being basically consciously competent, but consciously competent requires effort. And the transition between consciously incompetent to be like conscious about what you're incompetent about and to be incompetent in a very conscious way literally is your development from an ego's perspective. And what happens is that's when your ego kind of starts feeling like, oh, okay, at first it's super frustration, which means a whole part of you that's prideful is going to be like, you're either going to give up, or the first stage, you're either going to give up, or you're either going to kind of be, you're going to be like, nope, I'm going to do more and hopefully something comes up. And I don't know about if it's the intention behind it or if it's I think it's consistency. It's always about consistency. And so intention happens after consistency. If you're not consistent, it doesn't matter how intentional you are. Like I've seen people get really good at something within like a span of 2 weeks, but like come back after like a year or 6 months of doing jack shit with it and then having to start like almost from scratch. But anyways, once you're transferring your energy from being consciously incompetent to from research mode to basically consciously competent to active mode, you have to literally that's when the ego is getting broken. And bits and pieces of the ego have to be kind of like replaced. And I think that's where the ego kind of like has developed enough of an intelligence towards the topic to be conniving and not really and be able to kind of like not mislead you but move you off the track through the transition. And that's it's because like we tend to rely on our ego once we're no longer kind of like once we're tired, once you're exhausted, what you have is everything you've worked on, which is basically the representation of you. And you know that from decision fatigue, like when you're like you always revert for old patterns when you're exhausted, and your old patterns are basically whatever remnants of your ego and whatever is kind of like waiting to take over when and support you and like build something, and it doesn't know any better. Remember, like all most of the time, it's just like the part of us that takes over when we are exhausted, when we can't be at the forefront anymore, when our mind is kind of like, I can't do this anymore. Those unconscious patterns kind of like reveal themselves in order to kind of take charge, rest, relax, don't worry about it, you don't have to think. And it's a good way to like, it's always about the engagement and how you're observing it, because yesterday or 2 days ago, I started the day feeling like failure. It was yesterday. And because of that, my whole day was filled with frustration. And almost everything I approached to a point of frustration because normally I do something, I'm good enough at it, I do enough of it, and I don't fully complete it. And I jump to something else. But by the next day, I'm like competent enough with the things I completed so I can take it a step forward and I jump to something else instead of just kind of like going through the frustrations and all the energies. But so it felt like I approached everything yesterday with one of those kind of like, I don't want to be feeling this way approach. And because of it, I got exposed to myself, which made me see this. It also reminds me of a quote. I was like, we're never ready, but always prepared, right? Because the goal is to kind of always prepare, but you have to jump into the stuff in order for you to kind of like do things with it. But anyway, so uh, once you become consciously competent, once how do you? That's where you are able to start noticing your credentials in the field, your skill, or whatever it is that you're approaching. But I think that's where imposter syndrome kicks in because, like, you always have to put in some effort in order to get something done. You always have to put in some effort in order to get something done. The goal afterwards is to be unconsciously incompetent, which means it's something that you can do. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to consider it. Just like driving, just like writing, just like language. The goal is to get to a point where you unconsciously are able to handle it. So your ego has been basically broken in the places that are required, refined in order for it to fit. And Today is one of those moments where I felt like my actual ego after yesterday was kind of had no escape from the reality that was in front of us. There was no way for my ego, for Tariq, to give any more excuses because I woke up admitting failure. And which got me to this quote: if I'm not where I want to be, then I'm not yet the person that brought it, that can bring it to life, which means the one I am now is not ready to be that person. And it got me thinking about all kinds of fears and different things that I might be working with, and envy and jealousy for random things. Because, like, subconsciously I want to be a better programmer, right? Subconsciously I want to be a better entrepreneur. And then suddenly when I see, like, in those, they show up, right? Because, like, you're very happy to meet these people that are successful, but a part of you is like, I want to get there. A part of me is looking there, or I want to be that competent or confident and all that kind of stuff. So they creep up. And I think, like, once a week, there needs to be a day where we admit failure, and, like, completely once a week is good. The true people that are, like, intense are the people that probably do that every day. And it's not necessarily admitting failure, but they're able to, like, without emotion, reflect on how their day, and to pragmatically understand the the tasks and the efficiencies behind them and the detail. I think that's a skill we need to achieve, but, like, I'll figure it out at some other point. Objectively subjective and subjectively objective, right? So look at everything in that kind of manner is the skill. It's like the whole. I think it's like a lens of reality where you can actually, like, be and then take it off, right? It's like one of those glasses that make you see reality differently. You take notes and then you take the glasses and then throw yourself back at it. That'll be fun. All right, guys, that's a video.